Let's talk about all the many things you can teach and practice with magnetic letters on a baking tray for reading, spelling, and phonemic awareness. We'll start with letter naming, letter sounds, word chaining, and go into adding suffixes with the doubling rule and the drop rule. The word chaining lists I use in this video come from the UFly Foundation's manual. This manual is from the University of Florida's Literacy Institute. I couldn't recommend this manual more. I'll put a link to UFly in the video description. So of course, as you would with any manipulative that you introduce to your class, you always want to go over your rules and expectations before you even give them the board. And I'd like to have at least 5 of these to use in small groups. So the first thing, of course, that students are going to want to do is mess up all the letters. So in the beginning, just let them mess up the letters. They can spell words that they want to. They might want to spell their name, of course, have spare letters. So that they can spell their name. And then after a few minutes, you might set a timer. And after a few minutes, ask them to put the letters back. And as they put them back, ask them to either say the sound of the letter, z, x, just softly to themselves, or you can ask them to say the name of the letter, K, A, N, O, and so on. You might want to also talk about why some of these letters are red. These are the vowels, U, H, and so on. After you've done that, give them a few minutes to explore with the letters. Let's start off by letter naming. So in the beginning of the year, if you're teaching kindergarten or a beginning reader, let's do an activity where we point to the letter by letter name. So I would just simply say, point to the letter M, point to the letter S, point to the letter B, or you could say, bring down the letter H. The student brings it down, says the name, H. Put back the letter H. Bring down the letter W. Students say W. Put back the letter W. So they're hearing the name multiple times and they're saying the name of the letter as well. Then you can go around the table and have the students each have an opportunity to say a letter name to bring down. So Johnny might say, bring down the letter P. Students find it, bring it down, P. Put back the letter P. Then the next student might say, bring down the letter T. Students find it, T, bring it down, put back the letter T. So they're hearing that letter name multiple times. Moving on from letter naming, you would do a similar activity with letter sound. So you might say, bring down the letter that is the sound mm. Students say mm and bring down the letter. Put back the letter that is mm. Put back the letter. Or you could say, bring down the letter that is h. The students repeat the sound h and say H is h. Put back the letter that is h. H is h. So once again, multiple times to hear that sound. You can even work in saying the letter name, and then they say it as they put it back. So they're hearing the sound and saying the sound multiple times throughout this practice. Next, moving on, when the students have learned a few consonant sounds and a few vowel sounds, you can start spelling words. Now remember, you're only spelling words with letters that have been explicitly introduced at this point. So let's say we want to start by spelling the word cat. The students would have already done a lot of work with these tapping cards outside of the letters in the phonological awareness activity portion of your day. You want to make sure they're very comfortable with the tapping card before you're introducing it here. So even if you do a few to warm up. Let's tap out the word cat. K-at, cat. Tap out sat. S-at, sat. Tap out pet. et, pet. So you can do that as a little warm-up before you begin spelling. Then you might say, spell the word sit. Tap it out, s, it. Then the students spell the word s, it. Tap it out, s, it, sit. You might ask a student to use that word in a sentence. I will sit nicely. Then you would ask the students to change the word. So let's change the word sit to the word sip. 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 Now let's change the s to t. And what's the word? Ip. Tip. Now let's change the word to top. Top. Once again, going back and forth between encoding and decoding. And you want to use your fingers to tap instead of the circles here because you don't want to ever tap a letter that's not there. So for example, when we changed tip to top, I said change tip into top. You wouldn't want them to say t-op because that is definitely not ah. So that's when they can use their fingers. T-op. Change tip to top. Once you've introduced consonant blends, I like to switch out my tapping card for manipulatives to push up each sound in the word. So let's say you can ask the students to spell the word slip. 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 Change the s to f. And what's the word? Flip. The word is flip. Let's use that word in a sentence. Moving on further in complexity, once you've introduced some suffixes, you can practice them with these magnetic letters. So I like to give each child a separate ed and ing. That way it leaves the letters up here to use for the spelling of the word. So let's say you ask the students to spell the word play. P-L-A. P-L-A. And that would be, of course, after you've introduced this long A spelling at the end of a word. Play. Now, what if I did it yesterday? What would I say? I played. Use that word in a sentence. Have a student give you an example of using that word. Then, what if I'm doing it right now? I am playing. So you can use a lot of different words to practice the use of ed and ing and giving the students an opportunity to use those words in a sentence. And then once you've introduced magic E and the dropping rule, you could use this board for practice. So let's say you ask the students to spell the word bake. B-ache. Great practice for the magic E. Bake. Now let's say I did it yesterday or even 1 minute ago. How would I change bake into baked? You would drop that silent E before adding ED, and the word becomes baked. And you can talk about how the ED there is making the sound of T, baked, and why that is. And you would have already taught that. This is just practice. Now, what if I am doing it right now? How would I change bake into baking? Once again, bake, drop the E before adding ing, and talk about why that is. And you can go on to make other words like run into running with the doubling rule. So go back and forth between the doubling rule and the dropping rule so they understand why and when to do both. There's a link in the video description for a few different options to purchase these magnetic letters. And the baking sheet you can just get from your local discount store. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more fun videos about learning to read.